Thank you very much. To get these results, like that, like this, we actually didn't do nothing, absolutely nothing different to get results like this, this, and that. Today, I will be showing you guys the exact content creation workflow, or you could also say system, that we used to get our clients not only rank in Google, #1, but also get mentioned in ChatGPT, Perplexity, you name the LLMs. For the content creation process, I've divided it into 3 phases. We'll start off first with the content brief. So really simply, it's first laying out the foundation before you actually even write a single word. So step 1 of the whole process is understanding what does the searcher actually want to know, find, or buy. It's usually one of those 3, right? They're looking for something. And this doesn't have to be complex. You can look that from competitor posts. What I like to do, especially nowadays, is use ChatGPT 5 thinking model with the web search and see actually what is the thought process of ChatGPT, and that later I can use to actually reverse engineer into what subtopics I'm going to cover. And okay, we now know what information is the searcher looking to know, or maybe they're looking to find something, or they're maybe looking to buy something. Now, based off of that, we can tell, look, is this a fact-based kind of like a lot of research, right, that goes into it, or it can be like opinion or experience. So for example, if we're talking about a travel website, right? You provide like experience. Right? How was your experience at certain museum in whatever country it is? Now we understand what is the need and what do we need to do to meet the need. Let's get now a bit more specific on how to actually meet the need. This is kind of like a brainstorming session I usually do before I actually even structure or create any sort of content outline. So first thing is identifying, okay, what are the actual subtopics that I need to cover? So this can be also what kind of questions I need to cover in the content, just in general, what do I need to talk about? Let's say now you kind of understand what subtopics you want to cover. Then based off of that, you can start to already think, okay, what facts do I need to provide? What, or maybe, you know, because there's either fact-based or like kind of opinion/experience-based kind of content, then understanding, okay, what are those facts or opinions or experience? Now, this might not apply for all pages, but especially for e-com, understanding what specific product details or service details do we need to provide the searcher in order to meet their need, right? In order for them to make the decision of purchase, for example, as easy as possible. Because the worst thing that can happen, I'd say, is that they're indecisive, they haven't gotten enough information, and then they just won't buy anyway, right? With keyword variations, it's understanding how to get maximum visibility, even though, you know, okay, AI search kind of is taking over or whatever, but still, Google, especially in Estonia or like Lithuania markets, right? There's still, at least what I've seen from Estonia, there's not as much like AI overviews compared to like English or like US, UK, Australia SERPs. So there's still a bunch of people are still using Google for searching stuff. Now, I don't think there is necessarily one, like the most important thing you have to focus on here. However, if we're talking about AI search, then originality and what's your uniqueness? What's the unique thought, what's the unique opinion that you provide? What's the unique maybe experience that you have, or what is like a certain fact that you have gotten from like maybe a lower, like a lesser known source that is still credible that you can provide that like your competitors haven't? So really finding the way how to make your content piece provide that unique value, because that gives other people a reason to actually like read it. Because if your content piece is exactly like some of those other AI generated content, then what's the value in actually reading it? Like, what's the point? I mean, they can just easily go to ChatGPT and ask that question themselves, and they'll get the same answer that you provided them in like a blog format. So, all right, now we have identified, okay, what is the need? What do we need to do in order to meet the need? Let's actually start to work towards actually putting together this content piece. We usually start from structure, so actually like laying out what are the topics, how to like efficiently go about creating this structure is really thinking, like, okay, so I've covered this first topic, right? I've covered this core topic, and actually what's also really important is to cover, like, okay, they have a certain need, right, that they're searching for, they want to find out by whatever. You meet that as soon as you can, and then if they want to learn more, then from there, it starts the thinking process, which I was talking about. So, okay, what is the next question on their mind? And then after that, continuing to do that until you cover all related topics. And now with FAQs, pretty much the same, right? So thinking, okay, you've covered all the core topics. What is something that maybe they kind of still is a question to them and is maybe like a quicker answer or whatever? Then also think, okay, what's the first FAQ or frequently asked question that they would have, and what are those even? All right, now we have actual structure, right? So here are the topics that we're going to cover in this order. What I like to do before actually starting to draft the whole article is below the heading, actually address the topic, or depending now what kind of header it is. Is it a question, or is it just like non-kind of question header, then addressing whatever you have to address first. I always focus on that, but a question is a very easy example. I just literally focus on answering the question straight up already, and then expanding the content from there. Now, how to write these direct answers, what has been super, super helpful for us to get into these LLMs. If you see in that example, we have what is an app bug report, right? In the direct answer, we use an app bug report is, and then we literally answer that. Why do we do it like that? This gives confidence to Google, to ChatGPT, to Google as well, right? That you are actually going to answer that question that you have in the heading. For these direct answers, and this is like the 30% thing that I mentioned before, it's kind of like a good guardrail, but it's kind of just to emphasize that try to be as concise as you can, but do not compromise on the information that you're providing, right? So do not leave anything out just to be conciser. In 1 to 3 sentences, you should be able to answer it. Now, and then the key talking points, right? So this is the last step I do before actually drafting the content, and it's laying out, okay, what are the specifics actually gonna be? And this will help me first to organize where I'm gonna talk about what, so I'm not talking about something in one section, and then I'm talking about it again in another section, and then they kind of don't have a comprehensive understanding of what I'm trying to communicate to them. And besides that, it also helps avoiding me just wasting time, right? Like content writing can be a huge waste of time if you're purely just writing all kinds of fluff, and that's also where it's careful to be with AI. So yeah, those are main things that I do before actually drafting. Now, for drafting the content, so that's the second phase of our workflow that we have used, and we've used this absolutely for every site. Obviously, now before I move on to this step, obviously content creation is a creative process. But here are some certain best practices that I still like to follow whenever I'm creating a content piece. So first of all, it's trying to use purely my voice or your writer's voice, whoever is writing the content. So for that, we have actually trained a custom GPT on, let's say if we're doing it, if I'm the writer, right, because I've also done that, I've trained a custom GPT that uses the content from my videos, my YouTube videos, my social media posts. What I also did at the start, when I didn't have many blogs, I was just, I don't know, yapping something kind of, but of course I was talking about something constructively. However, every one of us has their own way of talking, so that helped me to get a start to this. Before I started SEO, I didn't think that content and burritos can have something in common, but they do have quite a bit, actually. The theory with burritos, right, is that when you take something out, then it should fall apart, right? That's a good burrito, technically. You take a chicken piece out, it falls apart. How I approach content is actually quite similar. If I can take a sentence out, why is that sentence there? Like, if I can take a sentence out without that impacting the value or clarity, in general, just me providing the value to the reader or searcher, then Why is it there? It's just like taking space, and obviously, right, the longer the content is, the more difficult it is to retain somebody to actually read it. This is something I've just tested through Microsoft Clarity. I've done split test where I've actually tried, okay, 5 lines, 6 lines at a time, paragraphs, and what has been the sweet, or kind of the maximum that has kind of still had the most optimal reader experience has been 4 lines at a time. And that's on desktop, of course. On the phone, regardless if you write 2, 3, 4 lines, then that's anyways going to be longer, right? Some smaller screen. When I like to use tables, I have set this key rule for myself, and it's when I do comparisons. So I don't try to just put tables, put images, put infographics, put this kind of stuff in the content just to make it more engaging. That already means your content is flawed from the start. Then for infographics, I like to use for processes. So especially very technical and complex processes. If let's say your target audience is the opposite of these technical people, they want to kind of do this. Let's say SEO, right? You have business owners who don't know much about SEO. SEO is fairly technical form of marketing. So explaining all of these different SEO, for example, like this is what I'm talking about today, right? If I had an infographic that explained the whole process, it would be much faster. You can kind of understand at least the core concept of it. But today I'm getting into a bit more detail. And then also for checklists. And why checklists? Well, it has worked great for them because you can actually share those images, right, with other people. And we want people to share our content. And not only share, I mean, they can save it for themselves and implement it later, right? Checklists, that's what checklists are mainly for. And then images. Images, in my opinion, are the most, poorly used content piece, at least what I've seen from my friend group and some other SEOs that I know, is that images, they just put them just to, the exact same reason I said before, just to make the content more engaging so it's not that boring. There are much better ways of using images that actually benefit your content. So first of all, it's showing some kind of uncommon thing. So recently, I actually wrote a blog on, and I never thought I'm going to also write on this topic, but hey, I did, 29 gift ideas for grandmas for Grandparents' Day, right? Something like that it was. And there was something like an electric blanket. Please raise your hand if you ever heard of an electric blanket. Wow. Okay, how do you know about that? All right, well, sure. Anyways, most of people didn't know about that. And what was really good is to use an image there to actually, and I showed that to my mom, and my mom was like, what is that? And then she saw the image, oh, okay, that's what it is. So it helps provide value to the reader in that way. Or it can be some uncommon action. Another question for you guys. Who knows what is lacrosse? Okay. So still, most of the room doesn't know what it is. And thus, when I was running my sports agency site, actually there I had to use that a lot because European people had no clue what lacrosse is. So clarifying, because you don't want to leave the reader what was this? Or what is he talking about? You don't want to do that, right? You want to make sure that everything is understandable, clear. And I think the most powerful way to use images is in CTAs or wherever you're talking about the specific problem you're solving or showing your solution. And the last phase, or the last, phase of creating a well-ranking page that we have in our process is refinements and optimization. So for optimization, I have kind of categories of checklist items that I like to use. I don't have a set list of checklist items for each page because, I mean, a SaaS competitor's post, your SaaS and then some competitor you're talking about, you're comparing your SaaS or you're showing a list of SaaS products, is much different than an e-com product page, right? The kind of content you're writing there. First of all, for each different type of content page, I have a best practices checklist. So that's for SaaS competitors, e-com product page, just general information blog. I have a separate checklist for all of those, and just making sure that even though I know them from the top of my head, and then most of the time they're actually I've already implemented all of those. However, it's just still to make sure to go okay, I've implemented everything. I've made this as good as I can from the best practices standpoint. Then seeing also, is there maybe any subtopics you missed when you were doing your kind of brainstorming research phase? just to make sure that you're covering the full need that they have. Then unique angles, right? So we talked before about uniqueness. Then here it's also to go over, okay, how can I what kind of unique value can I provide to the reader? Is there anything else that maybe I could, that would make this content piece more valuable? Then internal links. So, as we all, if you guys know or if you guys don't know, but it's very important for your page, especially like your content, to be connected, right? Helps with crawling, etc. Then definitely also looking at, okay, how could you use internal links within your content piece to get them to maybe read something else that will be really helpful for them? And the more content pieces they read, the more trust you actually build with them, of course, if the other ones are good as well. And thus, they're more likely that they're ready to take the next step, whatever it is. Is it to buy something, I don't know, submit their email for a newsletter, whatever it is. AI overviews, right? So that's something that everybody, we're talking about LLMs and AI overviews. For that, what you could do is, of course, this is if it's relevant. Because, if we're talking about Baltic SERPs, I don't know about Lithuania and Latvia, but I do know about Estonia, and there's not that many AI overviews still appearing. So, however, if there is, then reverse engineering, okay, what did the competitor who got referenced in that, like what piece of content got referenced? Maybe you need to also cover that subtopic, or what direct answer got referenced there. So kind of seeing what happened, what got referenced, and understanding that has worked really well for us in actually getting into the AI overviews as well. And then finally, SERP features. So I promised to you guys that I was going to say, like, okay, how can you get more of those FAQs, right? And it's through, so for example, People Also Ask section is a great place that we've used to get like great FAQ ideas to insert into our FAQ section into our content piece. So we haven't had to, like a lot of times we haven't had to like think those like ourselves, or kind of like, through keyword research somehow. So that has been really useful. Before we do the last step, before we actually publish, I also always, we actually read through the content piece. We don't just, I know some people do it, I know if you guys do it, or if anybody does it, but they like to give it to ChatGPT and tell me all the mistakes that I made in this blog, right? And then it will list you out, then you say anything else, then it'll list you out some more, and then you'll just be in this endless loop. What I actually like to do, because I think humans are the best for this, because you're gonna eventually want the human to read it, is read it through yourself. Maybe once you've got the draft, take a coffee break, read the next day, whatever works best for you, actually go through it yourself and see how it feels. And reading it out loud is especially good, because you can see like, okay, this sounded weird, why do I have this in here, right? Or you can maybe put it in another section. So that's why I like to do this. So I review the headings, direct answers, and core content. So that's what I always go through. That's when making refinements. And then final touches. So meta description, right? The meta description depends on the content, so I never try to stress and just kind of, okay, check that off, get the meta description done, and then actually start writing the content, because you might have to rewrite it then once you've changed the content, right? Because content creation is a process. It's not like kind of one and done. So yeah, I like to do it at the end. And I also always make sure, this might be my personal preference, but I've learned it the hard way, is that external links need to open in a new tab, because otherwise, let's say, okay, you have a content piece. They click on your Harvard Business Review link. They go to Harvard Business Review. They start reading that. I don't know how many guys you have done that, but you've kind of gone to a next content piece, then you go to another one, and you kind of just read all these different things, and you're already way past the first one that you actually clicked on. So that's why I like to make sure that as well. And then just submitting it to indexing, of course, in Google Search Console. Now, if you want the exact process, I put it into it's still a process, but it's in a checklist format. So it's like very easy to like follow. So if you guys want that, you can scan this. Yeah, I've said all these nice things, right? What has worked for us, I've shown results, but it's always very crucial in SEO, because experience is ultimately what matters, is to test, and test all these things. Thank you very much.
George, I appreciate for your informative and practical presentation packed with tips and useful tactics about content creation for AI. We do have several questions on Slido. We do have a little bit of time. So to kick it off with the first one, does blog still work, or there are better alternatives for content creation, in your opinion?
So what I've seen is that purely informational blogs, they still do work, and everything depends, right? But OK, I'll break it down a bit more. If we're talking about like smaller markets, like for example, like Estonia and Latvia, Lithuania, the Baltics, and maybe some other like European kind of languages, then I believe here information blogs still do work, but I do not believe they're very evergreen. Because for example, what I realized is that the 29 gift ideas post, actually GPT just can answer that. I didn't use the web search, and GPT can actually perfectly answer that for me without actually having to go to the web. So if it's like purely informational content piece and it's not based on like experience, like I think the fact-based content piece is going to suffer the most. So yeah, that's my view on it. And especially right now, if we talk about US, like English market, then you can make them, but they gotta be really like, how to say it, you gotta really add your own kind of touch to it, do your maybe own research, gotta be, the bar is only raising for those kinds of content pieces. That's my view on it.
Another one, can you share a single growth tactic that helps to appear in ChatGPT and other LLM models?
Growth tactic or hack? Or I guess
hack,
whatever.
Tactic,
yeah.
whatever.
Well, I'd say the main kind of, I guess, hack or tactic that has really, really like worked for us like really, really well, and we've done it for all of the content pieces. And every time it has either gotten into the citations, right, or it has literally gotten listed, depending on is it like a kind of a listicle page or whatever. But it's reverse engineering, taking the ChatGPT-5 thinking model, using, and it doesn't have to be actually web search, but seeing what is the thought process of it, and reverse engineering, taking like the different topics that it's thinking about and considering. For example, it's called a SOS button for this elderly care company. We reverse engineered, what are the different things it's considering when it's evaluating these different SOS buttons. We implemented that into the content, and boom, I mean, it outranked, and also, like if I'm talking about outranked in Google plus AI search, so ChatGPT, in like 24 hours. Of course, Estonia is also a easier market, I guess, so to say, less competition. But still, I mean, they were much better. Like this site is very new. It's, I think, like a couple months old that we helped get there. So it's just purely we covered all the things that GPT was looking for. So that's, I'd say, one of the biggest kind of hacks, tactics that has worked for me.
And the last one, what's your opinion on LLMs.txt standard to rank better on LLMs responses?
Today, I am more a content SEO. So I've talked this with our technical guy, so who has always helped me with like building websites and making sure the Roblox TSD file, etc., is set sitemap and all of that. And at least from what I've heard from him, is that and it's very ambiguous information. I'm very sorry. I can get back to you guys with that. But he has like said it's like he has read through, of course, and tested some stuff. It helps, but it's not that like game-changing. At least that's what we've seen as of now. So, but I'm not a technical-focused SEO, so that's not I haven't tested that as much. So I don't want to just say here as well that it was great or it was really bad. So yeah, I just want to be honest.
I appreciate for your input. I appreciate for your presentation today. We do have gifts from our sponsors, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.